Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself and Mike, and today another transfer, well not even a rumour, actual concrete move for a midfielder, and that is Conor Gallagher of Chelsea. It looks like we've finally put in a bid, and I think it lasted about 10 minutes until it kind of broke that he was rejected. So this kind of came out this morning from Fabrizio as kind of a roundup. He said that Chelsea have rejected West Ham's first bid for Conor Gallagher of around 40 million with add-ons. After they've discussed internally and also with Poch, Chelsea decided to reject it. West Ham are still interested, but Chelsea want at least 50 million to sell Gallagher this summer. So it looks like Chelsea are kind of hoping for a little bit of a bidding war, similar to what we were hoping with Declan Rice. It looks like the likes of Newcastle, the likes of Spurs are still circulating Gallagher and might make a move for him as well. So if we are to get this done, it's probably one we need to act on fast if we want to improve on our offer. Initial thoughts on the first bid, Mike, of £40 million for Gallagher. How do you kind of value him and what he would maybe bring to West Ham? Would you like to see that move happen?
Not for anything more than what they've offered. Personally, if I was bidding, I would be looking to pay about 35 mil. I would have accepted that you probably need to go to about 40, but them asking for 50, I think, is too rich for our blood. It's not that I don't necessarily think that value is unreasonable. At the end of the day, we said it about Rice. The club selling the player gets to dictate that price, and they've said it's 50. So in their eyes, it's fair. Us saying, "Oh, it's a ridiculous price," is irrelevant at the end of the day, because the selling club have said that he's worth that. We then have to then put our valuation against it. I think 45 million is a fair bid if they are setting it at 50. I wouldn't go any higher than that. 5 million could be a difference maybe in a very good loan deal. So I wouldn't go any higher, and I think it also helps to kind of play back that moves for the likes of Alvarez, who's about 40 to 45 million euros. Fofana, who's been talked around about 35 million euros. You can just see the immeasurable value in that when you can buy a player for 10 to 15 million pounds less, who is just as good, if not better. So it's really quite an interesting ploy, and I've said it before that it feels a little like we are going for players that we know Moyes likes and probably wants, to kind of prove the point as to there's limited value in this market, and we've tried for your players and it hasn't worked. Now you maybe need to turn over the reins and allow us to go for these better price, better value players, which are maybe more of a long-term piece, rather than serving your short-term means and goals.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's kind of heating up with what we're doing in the midfield department and the bids we're putting in. It looks like we're going for the scattergun approach, which we put out yesterday on our Twitter, and it's like we're going to see what comes back from a lot of bids. No real planning, just a bit of vibes, and see what we can land for the best value of money. But yeah, I think 40 million as an initial bid for Gallagher I'm surprised Chelsea rejected that, considering they wanted funds to kind of help their Caicedo move. And if Gallagher's not in their plans, which it's been spoken about, I think 40 million is a pretty good price for both parties. Like you mentioned, I wouldn't really want to go much higher than 40 million. I suspect we'll go back in with around 45 million if the other bids we put in for other players are unsuccessful. But like I mentioned, there's other clubs circulating right now where we can't really afford to be picky. And I think we're getting closer and closer to the Premier League starting. It now feels like we have to act, and we might have to pay over the odds for some of these players just because we have the money. Clubs know we have the money, and they're in no rush to sell, but we're in kind of a rush to buy because we just haven't filled that gap yet, and the season starts in less than 3 weeks. So let's kind of just focus on Gallagher as a player, and what his kind of key attributes would be and how you'd see him fitting in at West Ham, because in my opinion, he's actually a really good player, and I think he would suit West Ham and David Moyes absolutely perfectly in that kind of right-sided 8 role. So just let me know, your thoughts and what his kind of underlying statistics are from the last season.
Yeah, I think Gallagher's kind of much belied in terms of what he can actually do. I think one of the things that I've seen as a criticism is, oh, he just runs about. Well, I find that quite amusing because that's pretty much all Robert Snodgrass did, but yet he was considered an absolute legend and a cult hero at West Ham. So it's funny how the goalposts move depending on essentially your allegiance. But what Conor Gallagher did last year was actually improve on his passing. It's still not amazing, it's still below the average when you think it's 84. But however, he does attempt to be, a bit more forward thinking in his passes. He does try to make things happen on the edge of the area. He does have a lot of kind of good accuracy in the final third. He's good when he carries the ball as well. He does like to kind of bring it forward. He likes to get in the area. You can guarantee he's going to be taking shots during the game. And think, what was it, 3 goals last year he scored for Chelsea in the Premier League, which is a good return. We know he scored about, I think it was 6 or 7 when he was at Crystal Palace, 2 of them being against us.
Yeah.
And he works tirelessly defensively. He's an incredibly industrious player. But the industry isn't just someone chasing their own tail, which I've seen put towards Gallagher, and that's not, in my opinion, strictly the case. He's high energy, and what he does is he will press. He will go from one player to the next player to the next player, because that's what he's asked to do. He's asked to use his high energy in which to close space. And whereas people will then say, well, that's a headless chicken or what have you. It is if you don't have other players pressing with.
It has to be systematic, doesn't it, really?
Exactly. And he is a player that will give incredible industry in that midfield, incredible energy. He will get from box to box without a problem, pretty much for 90 minutes. That's the kind of player he is. He's not afraid to go in for a tackle. He has played as, people like to think of him as, oh, he's not good defensively. He's played defensive midfield in lower league football. When he went out on loan to, I think it was Charlton for one half of the season, he played defensive. Then I think he went to Swansea, was a bit more attacking. He'd done the same at West Brom, played a bit of both roles. Again, at Crystal Palace, he essentially was the forward defender, because that's what they used him for. They had Zaha up front, and then they had Gallagher, because they had 2 players who had pace, who could press and limit space.
Yeah.
Forced teams to play long, which again, Palace were adept at dealing with the long ball game because they got good aerial defenders. So this concept or this idea that all he does is run around is I find it funny.
It's wrong.
It's wrong. There's more to it than that. He's not an unintelligent player who just chases the ball like a dog in a park.
Yeah.
He's not like that. And I do think he gets criticised for his on-ball play, but I think he is better on the ball than people give him credit for. He will try passes, which maybe have a lower percentage rate, which is why he is below the average when it comes to completions, but he's still, 83%, I think it was, for his completions. So, I don't see a problem with it. We always say that we want to see players that got high energy, work incredibly hard, want to try and score, want to get in the way of putting in blocks. And if you haven't seen the highlights from that Chelsea-Brighton game in pre-season, just watch it, because there is a moment that proves why Gallagher isn't just a headless chicken or shirks his defensive responsibilities, because there's a goal-bound shot that he just flings himself in front of and blocks in that game in particular to kind of highlight that defensive. And he scores a goal in that game.
Yeah.
Gets the ball, controls well, and then just hits it very quickly. That's, again, what he offers. So that's something we're not seeing from Souček in many years, really. That ability to kind of take things quickly and get beyond. Gallagher is that player who can do that, and it will also potentially allow the likes of Paqueta far more room to operate because of that high energy, getting forward and so on, allows Paqueta then to drift a little bit more, to come deeper, because he's going to have guaranteed to have a player sitting ahead, and that's something we haven't seen Souček do, whether that's tactically, whether that's confidence-wise, but it's not something we've seen Souček do nearly enough as what he used to do, with getting forward and getting ahead of play. And I think Gallagher, it's just within him. He can't control that in itself. He kind of has to go and has to be there. Because he has that pace and energy, he can continually do that for a game. Whereas with Souček, he has to be a bit more economical as to when he goes and when he stays.
Yeah, no, I think I'd agree. I think if he was to come in that kind of right-sided 8 role instead of Souček, and we brought in a very good defensive 6, I think that balance of Paqueta, Gallagher, and that 6 would work really well. And like you mentioned, it would allow Paqueta to drop deeper, get on the ball, and interlink play a little bit more. There's just less burden on him, and it will just be the presence of having Souček going forwards is pretty non-existent, and it meant that we were pretty left-sided in our attack, and a lot of it came through Rice and Paqueta last season. And we've seen with Souček, he's good when he's arriving in the box, etc. He's good defensively, but in the middle, there's just not much there. And I think Gallagher will add that. And I think we need that box-to-box presence to work with Paqueta. And I think those two would complement each other really, really well. And I think this transfer is a happy medium between the kind of Stridon and Moyes and Noble Sullivan kind of conflicts at the moment, because you're still getting someone who's 23 years old. You're getting someone that's got the Prem proven for Moyes, and he's English and suits the homegrown. And Steiden might be thinking, okay, he's still a good talent. He's still only 23 years old. Let's keep everyone happy, keep all parties involved happy, and try and get this done. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we bid much more for 40 million. Let us know in the comments what you would do. Would you go higher? Do you think Gallagher would be a good fit at West Ham? Because personally, I think he would be a very, very good fit. I think I wouldn't go much higher though. I think 45 million maybe is a maximum, but even then, that is overpaying. But I think we're at the point now we're just going to have to do that to an extent, and not kind of expect to get the deals we're going to get unless we go abroad or into these European leagues, which it seems like we're hesitant to do under Moyes. So yeah, let us know in the comments what you think about this bid being rejected, and whether you'd like to see Gallagher at West Ham next year, and what you think he could bring to that David Moyes team. And yeah, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel as always, and Mike, until next time.
Come on, you Irons.